One thing that life has taught me is perspective. Our perspective, the way we view and understand the world, shapes our thoughts, emotions, and our actions. It can determine whether we approach challenges with fear or optimism, and where we view others with judgment or with empathy. Think about the analogy of the half glass, whether it's half full or half empty. Do you view it as an optimist, where it's half full, or a pessimist, as half empty? When we think about perspective, don't think about it as viewing through a single lens. Instead, imagine it as if you're viewing it through a kaleidoscope. And for those of you who don't know, and this is when I'll show my age, back in the 80s and 90s, before the iPads, before the phones, the computers, MacBooks, and all this great technology, when I was a kid, we used to have this thing called a kaleidoscope. Think about a pirate telescope, except when you're looking through it, instead of seeing what's directly in front of you, you're looking through it and you see shapes and colors. But then when you twist it, that's when all the fun happens. You see, that's when the colors start shifting and evolving. And that is one of the keys to life. Gaining a new perspective and continuously evolving. When we think about things that shape our perspective, we think about our upbringing, our culture, our education, and our personal experiences. However, it doesn't have to stop there. In fact, it begins with our upbringing, our culture, our education, and our personal experiences, but then we get to the point where that perspective has the ability to broaden, okay, and flourish like that first flower in spring. But I'll tell you, it takes work, all right? It takes us being curious. It takes us active listening. It takes us presuming positive intent. That's a hard one. Presuming positive intent. Ensuring that that person has the best intentions. It takes us traveling, trying new things, challenging our assumptions, and of course, practicing empathy. Now let's talk about these things. When I think of curiosity, I think of me and my wife's daughter, Alejandrita. As a newborn, she doesn't have any preconceived notions. She can't tell me what she likes. She can't tell me whether one food is better than another, and she can't describe fear because she's never experienced it. Two parts of perspective are being curious and approaching new experiences with an open mind and a willingness to learn. Because just like Alejandrita, you'll never know what you like unless you try it. Now, when we compare a newborn to an adolescent, a newborn to a teenager, a newborn to an adult, all of these things have one thing in common, and that is the newborn doesn't have enough life experiences to form an opinion about something. Therefore, how could it have any preconceived assumptions or perspective on any topic? You see, when we open up our minds and treat our life experiences and challenges with a curious perspective, it is then we can practice active listening. When we actively listen, it is at that moment that we open up ourselves to new experiences. And it is at that moment we can challenge our assumptions by taking the single lens perspective out and looking at things from a broader, more empathetic perspective. This guy right here, this has been my friend since the year 2000. This is my best friend, Jerron. And when I think of challenging assumptions and gaining a new perspective, I think of one lesson that he taught me back in our 20s. And little did he know at that moment, the advice that he would give me would be instrumental to my development as an adult. He said, "You see, Al, we've been friends for 10 plus years. I've been with you through everything. Now, I'm not saying this is the case. However, have you ever stopped to think that maybe the problem isn't them, but maybe the problem is you?" Little did he know, this advice would be monumental to my development. And at this moment, I didn't want to admit it, but a light bulb went off. He was right. I wasn't holding myself accountable. I was only looking at things from my biased perspective. You see, we as people tend to look at things one-sided, okay? We look at things through our own biases. When we argue or have a conflict with someone, we tend to think, I only want to think about how they negatively impacted me, instead of looking at the whole picture. And then we kind of step into the territory where we become defensive and we listen to respond instead of listening to understand. Let me say that again. We listen to respond instead of actually partnering with them to listen to understand. And then, of course, there's the occasion where we insult someone or hurt somebody's feelings unintentionally, and then, we say something to the effect of, well, it's not my intention, or I didn't do it on purpose, as opposed to actually partnering with them, apologizing, and fixing it. And then when we say something like, that wasn't my intention, or I didn't do it on purpose, we shoulder shrug and expect them to get over it. But as my good friend Mr. Billings says, it's not about the intention, it's about the impact. So, with that being said, I would like to sum this up by saying this. When we view the world, we can only change if we challenge our assumptions and actively listen in order to be more empathetic and understanding. The famous actor Sterling K. Brown said it best: empathy begins with understanding life from another person's perspective. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has an objective experience of reality. It's all through our own individual prisms. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, instead of looking at the world through a single lens, imagine it as if you're looking through a kaleidoscope. Thank you.